This is Quit by Annie Duke, and it's one of my favorite books that I read over the last few months. It's one of those books that's really stuck with me because it changed the way that I think about things. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you why I'm a quitter, why I'm proud to be a quitter, and why you should be a quitter too. This video is going to be divided into two parts. The first part is going to be explaining why quitting and being good at quitting is an important skill in life. And the second part is to understand how we can be a better quitter using some tips from behavioral science. So I hope that's interesting for you guys. Let's start with the first part, why being a quitter is really important. So the word quit is often viewed with a lot of stigma. If somebody says, I'm a quitter, that's generally looked on as a bad thing. Whereas somebody who says, I'm somebody who always sticks it out to the end, that's generally looked on as like a good, positive trait. But the argument that Annie Duke makes in her amazing book is that actually we should be proud to be quitters, and here's why. Sticking things out to the end isn't always a good idea, especially if that thing is bad for you or if you've been going at it for a while and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. By sticking something out for longer than you should do, it actually prevents you from doing other things with that time that could be more profitable or beneficial for your life and career, and so it has a very high, what economists call opportunity cost. If you stick with something too long, the opportunity cost grows and actually hinders your long-term profitability or your long-term benefit. A really good analogy for this is poker, and Annie Duke, the author of the book, actually is an ex-professional poker player. Now, I'm not an expert in poker, but I happen to know somebody who is really good at poker.
Hello.
Hello.
That is my brother, and while he's not a professional poker player, by all accounts, he's pretty good. So, how good are you at poker?
I'd say I'm pretty good. I played a lot in college and kind of made a decent income at that time through the game. I can beat some pretty good stakes online in kind of full ring cash games. And even today I still play 2-5 live pretty frequently and to kind of unwind.
Now, I don't really know what any of that means, but you get the idea. When it comes to poker, my brother knows what he's talking about.
How does a round of poker work?
So in Texas Hold'em, everyone gets dealt 2 cards, and the object of the game is that the dealer will put out 5 community cards in the middle, and whoever has the best 5-card hand between your 2 cards and the 5 on the board, or just the 5 on the board, wins the pot.
So what are the different actions you can take as a player?
Basically 3 actions for every street. We call them streets of the game. And so every decision you have when it's your turn to act, you can either call like a bet that someone else has made, you can make a bet yourself, or you can fold your hand to a bet. So if someone else bets, you can fold your hand to that bet.
What does it mean to fold?
To fold means to basically resign your hand, to give it back to the dealer and say, I'm resigning the pot, I'm losing the pot.
So why do players fold? Why don't people just play every hand?
So there's many reasons to fold. The decision to play the hand at all is a decision. If you don't think that you have a good hand, or you think someone else might already have a better hand before there's been a lot of action in the game, you can choose to pitch in your hand and fold your hand. Another reason to fold would be, throughout the hand, do you think that someone else has a better hand than you? And then also, maybe you think also, I don't think I can bluff that person off the hand either. And so if you don't have the best hand and you don't think you can bluff the opponent, then that's usually a very good reason to fold.
So why is it important to know when to fold?
Well, ultimately in poker, you win over time by getting more money in when you have the best hand and losing the least money when you have the worst hand. And so, if you never fold, then you're probably going to lose more money when you have the worst hand than you could if you were able to fold correctly.
How do you think knowing when to fold has translated into other aspects of your life and how you think about other decisions in your life?
Poker has a ton of parallels with life and business in particular. Ultimately, it's a game of incomplete information. You don't know what your opponents have. You only know at least a little bit about what you have. And so being able to fold correctly is a strategic decision. So in life, there are lots of instances where you've already put in a lot of money or put in a lot of time or a lot of effort. And to stick with your hand or stick with that approach, even when you know it's losing, is kind of a sunk loss fallacy? What do you call it?
Sunk cost.
Sunk cost fallacy. This plays out every day. I mean, you see it all the time. There are people doing things. You yourself will do things. I'll do things, and you think it's the right approach at one point, and then you get new information, and then you need to adjust your approach. And sometimes that approach is to fold and to give in the hand. Otherwise, like we were saying earlier, you will lose the maximum.
So as you can see, just like poker, quitting on time is really important, not just for poker, but for your general success in life. If you're a business, quitting an R&D project that doesn't seem to be bringing any fruitful results can save your business a lot of money and allocate those resources, including human resources, towards something that's more beneficial. If you're somebody who's trying to figure out what career you want to go down, pursuing a career for a while that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, don't stick it out, quit it and go for something else, because that other thing that you try, this new thing that you try, is more likely to be successful.
This is so much better than that.
And finally, if there's a relationship that you're in that is not working out very well, you've been trying to make it work for a while and it doesn't seem to be, then maybe calling it quits is the right move. Getting out of a bad relationship early frees up your time to pursue somebody else or pursue a new relationship that might be more beneficial to you, and overall that's going to lead to more long-term relationship success. Now, that's all well and good me saying this in theory, right? It's very easy for us to go, oh, okay, yes, Pete, I understand I need to just quit things early. But when do you actually do it? Because when you're in those relationships, or you've been pursuing that thing for a while, or you've poured lots of money into that R&D project, it's actually quite difficult to quit. Now, we know this intuitively, but there are a few behavioral science principles at play here that make that quitting especially difficult to quit.
Oh no. Here we go again. Here we go again.
The first reason why quitting on time is difficult is because of something called the escalation of commitment, which basically says the more we invest in something, the more likely we are to want to pursue it more. For example, if you're a government and you've invested billions of pounds into a funding project for maybe building a railway, for example.
Boris Johnson insists the high-speed rail link HS2 is crucial for the country, as he marked the official start of construction of the tracks for the project, costing more than £100 billion.
Are you serious?
Then that's going to cost you a lot of money, and you don't want to quit it now that you've started it because you've already invested so much money into it. However, perhaps quitting that project and reallocating those funds would actually be a far better use of that money. But because of this psychological bias, the sunk cost bias, we end up pouring more money and time into these projects, and as a result, we end up with this escalation of commitment. The second behavioral science principle at play here is the desire for certainty. So this is us wanting to know what is happening next. You may have heard the phrase, better the devil you know than the devil you don't, and that's basically the desire for certainty in a catchphrase. In the book, Annie Duke talks about one of her friends who was miserable in her job. As her friend was regaling all of the reasons why she was so miserable in the work that she was doing, Annie just posed the question, well, why don't you quit? Now, quitting their job was not easy for this person, not for financial reasons, but because they said, well, I don't know what'll happen to me if I quit. I don't know if I'll be able to find another job that is better, or I don't know if I'll be able to find something that's more fulfilling. But then Annie posted this question, well, if you stick with your job, how are you going to feel? And the person said, well, I'm going to be miserable. And then Annie asked her, well, if you quit your job, is there a chance that you might find something that's better and you won't be miserable? And then she said yes. And then she realized that quitting was the right move for her. But you can see at play here this desire for certainty, or rather this avoidance of ambiguity, of uncertainty, was stopping her friend from quitting her job, which was guaranteed to be bad. So with the escalation of commitment and the desire for certainty preventing us from quitting on time, how do we actually be better at quitting? Well, Annie Duke provides a few amazing examples of things that we can do to make sure that we aren't sticking with things too long. So if you want to get better at quitting, Annie Duke provides a lot of really useful tips. But for me, the one that I found to be the most exciting and interesting to think about is the concept of kill criteria.
I shouldn't.
Do it.
Now, kill criteria sounds really menacing and evil, but actually it's quite good as a practice. So this is what a kill criteria actually is. So a kill criteria is a set of criteria that you set out for yourself at the start of a project that basically says that if you meet those kill criteria during this project, you have to kill it off. You have to end the project, quit it, and by doing so, you'll end up saving yourself a lot of time and money and pain in the long run. Now, good kill criteria should be specific and measurable. For example, if you are starting a new YouTube channel, you might say something like, if I don't reach 10,000 subscribers within 2 years of this YouTube channel, then I'm going to quit it. That's a very specific and measurable way to think about kill criteria. Now, you can apply this to career paths or hobbies or even relationships, that if you reach a certain amount of time with somebody in your relationship and that isn't working out, and then you have to kill that relationship no matter what. And of course, it applies really importantly to business. If you're working on some kind of R&D project, for example, Google X is talked a lot about in Annie Duke's book, Quit. She talks about how Google X, the innovation hub of Google, one of the most profitable innovation hubs that Google has very strong kill criteria where they kill projects aggressively if they don't work out, because otherwise Google will be wasting a lot of money and a lot of very talented people's time on projects that just really aren't going anywhere. So kill criteria are really important. Make them specific, make them measurable, and stick to them. Now, there are many other good tips about how to be a better quitter that Annie Duke talks about in her book. So if you're interested in getting a copy of the book for yourself, go check out my link in the description. I highly recommend it to people who are advanced in behavioral science and people who are new to it. It's a very easy read, very enjoyable read. So that's why I'm proud to be a quitter, and why I think you should be proud to be a quitter too. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video or you learned something, could you please give me a thumbs up down below, because it really helps me out. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.